Are you making one or more of these 5 editing mistakes that I see photographers making all the time? Each one can ruin an otherwise amazing photo, but they're easy to fix once you know what to look for. So let me show you what they are and how to fix them. The first mistake is probably the most common one, and once you know about it, you're going to see it everywhere. When you sit down to edit a new photo, you instinctively want to brighten dark shadows to see all the detail in them, and to intensify golden light or sunrise and sunset colors to make them really pop. So you start to make those adjustments, lifting the shadows to make the most of your camera's awesome low light noise performance, darkening and pumping the contrast in a colorful sky to make it explode. But the problem is that there's a tipping point, and once you go past it, the balance between what should be light and what should be dark gets all messed up. And when that happens, your images are going to start to look like those dodgy HDR photos from years ago. Now, the reason that old HDR style looks so unrealistic is because light things are too dark and dark things are too light. And our brain knows something looks off, even if we don't consciously realize it. So how do you stop making this editing mistake? First, just being conscious of what should be lighter and what should be darker relative to everything else in the photo. And second, to make your selective adjustments accurately based on what should be light and what should be dark. Speaking of selective adjustments, if you're not making them in the right way, then it's going to leave your photos with a different kind of visible problem. Unless, of course, you eliminate this next editing mistake. Now, this is one that crops up when making selective adjustments using layer masks to reveal or hide light and contrast from different parts of your photos. And the problem happens when you use a black brush or a white brush in a layer mask without using what's effectively a stencil to ensure that you're only brushing exactly where you want the brush to go. So check this out. Look what happens when I use a regular brush straight into the layer mask of a curves adjustment to reveal a brightening effect in these shadows. It's virtually impossible to go right up to the edge accurately without going over the edge. And if you stay inside the edge, then you end up not brightening the rocks fully, leaving behind like a dark fringe. And if you do go over the edges, then you're just going to end up brightening the stuff behind these rocks, creating a bright halo. But check this out. Look what happens when you use a stencil to restrict your brush only to the shadows. It lets you brush right along the edge with the brush over both sides of it, but only painting into the shadows. So how do you create this magical stencil to brush through? Well, it all happens in the channels panel. So let's say you want to create a stencil for the shadows like we just did. The first step is to hold Command or Control on the keyboard and click the RGB channel. Then click the Save Selection as Channel icon down here that gives you this new Alpha 1 channel. And if we click on that channel now, it kind of just looks like a black and white version of your photo. But what it's actually showing you is how much of the image is going to be included in your stencil if you built your stencil from this Alpha 1 channel. So the whiter the pixels are, the more paint is going to be let through the stencil. So now let me invert this Alpha 1 channel with Command or Control I. The darker parts of the actual photo now become the lighter parts of this channel or stencil. For example, this dark rock is quite bright in the channel view, which means that the stencil, if we use it as a stencil, is going to allow paint through more in that area. But notice how behind the rock it's grey rather than pure black. This means that the stencil is also going to let some paint through in that area, but just not as much as here, where it's brighter. So in order to make a stencil that lets you paint into the rock without going over the edge at all, the process is as follows. Command or Control click on the Alpha 1 channel to load it as a selection again, and then hold Control Alt Shift and give a mouse click on PC or Command Option Shift click on a Mac on the Alpha 1 channel again. Now save the current selection as another new alpha channel, so this time that'll be Alpha 2. Now if we look at this one, we can see that the rock is still light, so the stencil is going to allow paint through in the rock, but behind the rock is virtually black, so the stencil is going to prevent paint from going there at all. So now I've established that, to use Alpha 2 as a stencil, just Command or Control click on it again, and then head back into the Layers panel, click on the layer mask that you want to brush into, and then take your white brush and brush through the rocky area to reveal the adjustment. So what I've just shown you is actually the quickest crash course in luminosity masking ever, and there is a lot more to it, but if you haven't downloaded my free luminosity masking plugin yet, then you can use it to shortcut everything that we've just done. So it's literally just a click or two to do the exact same thing. For example, to load the equivalent of that first shadow stencil that we made, Alpha 1, you would click this -1 button on the plugin. To load the second shadow stencil, Alpha 2, then you would click the -2 button, and you can get the exact same result all without touching the channels panel. So here's what that would look like. Simply click -2, the stencil is loaded, start brushing. How quick was that? So I've made this plugin free, and you can get it from the link in the description and pinned comment below this video. So go get it if you haven't already. And I do recommend it because it's also going to help you solve editing mistake number 3, because when you're a bit overzealous with increasing contrast, then you can easily end up with a common telltale sign that it's been photoshopped. Let me show you the quick and easy way to make sure that you're not ruining your image quality with overcooked contrast adjustments. Just add this little known and even littler used adjustment layer labeled threshold, and then slide the slider all the way to the left. And if you see any black pixels, that means those black pixels are going to be pure black pixels in your photo as well, which means all detail is lost. Now you can toggle your contrast adjustment off and on, and if the black pixels disappear when you do that, then you know that they're happening because of your adjustment. And you can use it in the same way to judge if highlights are clipped to white as well. Just move the slider all the way to the right, and if there's any white pixels in the black overlay, then you'll know that they're too light as well. And then if you do notice any over or underexposed pixels caused by your latest adjustment, whatever that may be, you can mask those problem areas out easily with the free Luminosity masking plugin. Just load a darkest shadow stencil, this -5, or a brightest highlight stencil, +5, and then use a black brush through the stencil in those areas. Now this next mistake isn't about something that you might be doing wrong, but it's about something that you probably might not be doing at all. It's a common trap that photographers fall into because we all kind of want as much resolution as possible, and our cameras capture incredible amounts of data these days, and it feels like a shame to waste it by cropping a photo and reducing the number of pixels. But let me ask you a question. Would you rather have a full resolution photo with an okay composition, or would you rather have a slightly reduced resolution photo with a perfect composition? So the mistake that I see so many people making is ignoring composition issues that could be fixed with a simple crop. To ignore a simple crop that creates a better composition and a better photo is like making a banoffee pie and refusing to peel the bananas because you don't want to waste anything. This next editing mistake is something that I only learned years into my photography journey, and as soon as I realized how it worked, I immediately felt the urge to go back and redo heaps of my old photos because I saw this mistake in so many of them. Now the problem that it causes is, even with the most colourful and vibrant landscape scenes, using the best editing techniques to make every pixel shine, the end result can still end up looking flat. And if that's the case, then the reason is because you're probably not treating things in the background differently to things in the foreground, and you're making everything pop, whether it's far off in the distance or right in front of the lens. To make a landscape scene really pop, it really should have a sense of depth, and you can create that by editing things differently depending on how far away they are from the camera. And this is based on some simple rules of depth that you can follow. Now the good news is there's an easy way to make adjustments based on image depth, but Adobe have hidden it away in a really hard to reach corner of Photoshop that nobody ever looks. So watch this next video to see exactly where it is and how to use it hand in hand with the simple rules of depth that are going to make your landscapes pop like never before.